Here we go. Okay, so my talk to you today is titled The Mind Once Stretched, a reference to an obscure quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. You'll see it in the last slide. I'll hold you in suspense until then. But it's meant to talk about the overview effect, and as lots of astronauts come back from space, it's describing the sense of having this God's eye view of the planet and how it has somewhat changed their minds. I wouldn't say it's not a profound one, but at least a subtle one. But the things that give you the effect are anything but subtle. I would say my experience with the overview effect began prior to even me getting into space. For years and years, I tried to go see shuttle launches, starting back when I was in the mid-'80s. And having not succeeded, I finally got to see my first shuttle launch, the one before mine. I went up on STS-118, this is STS-117, and I'm finally getting to see a launch. And if you haven't gone out to see a big thundering rocket come off the pad, like the Saturn V, like the Shuttle, or even the New Glenn rocket, or the SLS, the Artemis rocket, it's going off here in about a month or so, I recommend you go see it. It's nothing short of religious. Just the amount of, the light. I mean, the flame coming off those solid rocket motors is enough to make you squint your eyes. It hurts your eyes. And then you see these things light up, and you see the shock wave coming across the Banana River at you, realizing, okay, that is the noise of the shuttle that hasn't reached me yet. And when it does, it just hits you square in the chest. It just rattles your bones. This kind of power you only associate with things like tornadoes, earthquakes, other huge acts of God. But this is an act of human minds and human hands. About 60 seconds into that launch, I was doing what everybody else was doing. We'd all spontaneously burst into tears, that sense of just visceral sense of awe that it wasn't even voluntary. We just did. And so, again, what hath we wrought? What have we as a species done? The next thing that came was actually on my mission a few weeks later. Having ridden in what's called the middeck of the shuttle, there's no windows. And the ride to orbit was anything but spectacular. It sounded like every training ascent we'd done, with the normal talk about where you're going to abort if you lose an engine. And so it didn't feel like anything other than normal. The ride was a little bit more violent because of the engines behind me, that wrath of God engines that are taking you into the heavens. But my first chance to go look out the window was about 2.5 hours into the flight. I was laying down coaxial cables for our local area network of laptop computers on this 70-era shuttle. And I found myself up against the moonroof windows of the space shuttle and said, maybe I should look out the window. I'm in space for the first time. And I did. And here's what I saw, was the Sonoran deserts of Mexico with the tan soil and the blue-green ocean and the horizon out there. And also to punctuate the point, I see this golden object come flitting by me between me and the Earth, and I recognize it as a satellite. Ironically, a satellite that had launched 30 years to the day before our mission, a European probe. You see the gold foil flitting. It missed us by about a mile, which in space terms is a very near miss. But it was put a punctuation mark that not only I'm not in the sky, I'm above the sky, looking down on top of the satellites. About 10 days later, we were undocking from the International Space Station, and I had one job, and I couldn't screw it up, which is go do a photo survey of the International Space Station to make sure that the pieces on there were in the right spot after our spacewalks, after our robot arm operations, looking for a micrometeoroid debris of anything that sort out on the shuttle itself. So I locked myself in, and it's called the Space Hab module, little 12-inch window portal with my bank of cameras, and I'm going to get this map of the front of the space station. For lighting, we always undocked right at orbital sunrise, and so we see the space station. It's kind of this toaster coil orange as you back away. Our reaction control system motors are anything but like quiet little jets going puffing at you. They're like cannon fire, boom, and they're going off every few seconds as we're backing ourselves away, this 250,000-pound orbiter from the space station. So it feels like you're getting this kind of 21-gun salute from somewhere as your ship is moving out into space. And you see this orange space station, which is huge. It's my little 12-inch thing, and like the whole thing from Scotty from Star Trek. It fills the screen even at minimum magnification. It's out there. It's dramatic. And I'm waiting for that music, also Sprach Zarathustra, or those of you who might know it as a theme from 2001, to kick in. And at some point, I realized I'm supposed to be taking pictures. Despite that, a few years later, I was back up in space, and this time to go do spacewalking. And all of us who do spacewalking, including Dan Tani, who will come on later on, we're all type A personalities. Okay, so they give us about 8 hours of work to do and about 6.5 hours of work to get it done. But they call the rest of the work get-aheads. But you're supposed to get the get-aheads done anyway. And so I'm going to go out there my first spacewalk, and I'm going to knock them dead. I'm not there to smell the roses, not there to take in the scenery, not there to have this whole Major Tom thing going on when I go out the door. I'm going to get the work done. I'll save that all for the end of my last spacewalk when I know I'm not going out again, and then I'll go experience the wonders of the universe. At least that was the plan. I get out the door, and we're over the Amazon rainforest, in the middle of a cloudless summer day. Somehow I thought I was going to go out the door at night. There would be no distractions. I would just be working on things. But here it is, all laid around me, 360 degrees in panoramic vista of the Andes Mountains with all their snow-capped glory, these emerald green jungle, brown muddy river, this muddy delta emptying into the blue waters of the Atlantic, and I can't tear myself away from it. I'm trying hard to think about what I've got to do next. And my fellow spacewalker, named Steve Bowen, is just laughing at me. He goes, Alvin, take this in. You will never see anything this cool again in your life. So just enjoy it while you can. We got plenty of time to catch up on it on the timeline. And he was right on all counts. 10 days later, we're off the space station and we're coming home. 2 successful spacewalks, despite my little interruption at the very beginning of my first one. And we have a few chores to take care of. And this one of them is to inspect the belly tiles on the space shuttle to make sure it's safe for reentry. And so if you think of the robot arm on the shuttle as your own arm, you have this thing called an inspection boom that's like a bow on a violin. And imagine if you had a GoPro camera on the end of it and you're going back and forth along the belly of the shuttle just taking pictures of it. And it's about as exciting as watching paint dry. But it does take intense concentration. You don't want to get it wrong. So there's 3 of us working this arm, and we're taking our shifts doing it. And so the point where you just get tired from the concentration. I'm just coming off shift, and I'm resting my eyes, and I'm looking out focusing on infinity out in front of the shuttle windows, when I see this really faint blue-green glow out in the distance. And almost a soft tone talking to myself, I wonder if that's an aurora. And I hear our commander, Steve Lindsay, call all stop on the robot arm. This means something is either bad has just happened or something really bad is about to happen. And I turn to look and see what's going on behind me because I wasn't paying attention. And he's barking orders through the hatch. And up through the hatch are coming cameras, lenses, crew members. They're shouting out camera settings. And you'd think we were about to die. I've just never seen that sense of urgency on anything we'd done in space in 2 missions. But here this thing was getting bigger and closer to us, and dang if we didn't just split the uprights on this Aurora. And so we're out there, and everything just fell silent. All you could hear was a click of camera shutters as each of us is trying to get our picture on the front page of Aviation Week. We popped out the backside into the daylight just off the western coast of Australia, kind of brushed ourselves down, cleaned up our messes, and we didn't speak of it anymore afterwards. My final bit of awe came, again, unlike this, but before my first flight. This came after my last space flight. 30 years of flying in the Air Force, you're always trained to go walk around your vehicle to make sure all the big pieces were still there, depending on how you'd flown it during the time you were flying. I was a little bit wobbly. I didn't want to take the chance of doing a header in front of any national news cameras, so I just ducked to the side and went and started doing my walk around of the shuttle to make sure. But I had an entourage behind me of people who had worked on this shuttle, the preparation team, some of whom had been doing this for 30 years. And of course, they were asking, how'd she fly? I had Discovery. This is Atlantis, but this is the only picture I could have that kind of gave you the sense of what it looked like. And I'm telling them, this thing flew perfect. And as I'm telling them this, it occurs to me that the shuttle, described famously by John Young, one of the astronauts, as being 2.3 million parts, all built by the lowest bidder, never has a time when it doesn't have something broken on it. There's always backup systems, but this time I'm telling them, we aligned it with all the same primary systems we took off with. We never had to switch, never had any anomalies. This was the first time I'd ever seen a perfect shuttle mission. And as I'm telling them this, it's dawning on me that this is the last shuttle mission for Discovery. All these people I'm talking to are going to get a big reward of a pink slip or a retirement watch by the time they put this thing back in the hangar. What incentive do they have to do a good job on this particular shuttle over and above any of the other ones, except this was their final statement. This is them telling us that, no, this is our shuttle. We're proud of this girl. I'm glad you took care of it for us. And once again, I ducked behind a tire and had a good cry about that. They're a pretty awesome team out there, and my hat's off to them to this very day, some of whom have spent their entire careers from the day this shuttle first ever left the factory till the time we put it in the Smithsonian Museum out at Udvar-Hazy. This was their bird, and they took great care of it. Again, human minds and human hands. Including a few thoughts from space in general, things I saw on all my missions was one, we'd fly over the Terminator going into darkness 16 times a day, and I never got used to it. Because you're not dark adapted, you can't see the stars in the night sky beyond the horizon out there, and it just looks like the Earth is rolling into this gradient fade to black into this infinite darkness. And so you've got this little blue speck of Earth, this infinite universe, and it just looks like eternal perdition. And if you had an EKG hooked up to me, you would see me just that heart rate rising as we went into that Terminator. You just see kind of the Jaws music playing. But once we went through that Terminator, something wonderful happened. The stars would come out, and you would see the ground lights. You see thunderstorms going, and you saw how connected everything was. You see a lightning bolt go off on some 1,000-mile-long storm front, and it would touch off a chain reaction of lightning bolts the whole way down that front, and then go back the other way. You see lights from cities, fires, people sitting around together, and you see those cities connected by spider webs of roads out there, all with their own lights out there, and you really got a sense of how connected everything was on this planet. The other thing I noticed was always, it's hard to see in this particular photo as it showed, was this really membrane-thin wisp of atmosphere in which everything we know is enveloped. And compared to the Earth, which is itself kind of small compared to the universe, this 100-mile thick layer of air compared to that 8,000 miles of nickel and iron just seems like I said, the membrane inside of an egg. And to think that everything that you are, everybody you know, all of our history, everything that will ever happen in humankind, every Starbucks is in this little membrane of air out there, and it just seems incredibly fragile. To think it has persisted for these billions of years, and it's tougher than us. The other thing I noticed is that our cartographers, even from the days of the Middle Ages, with their transoms and their rods and everything else, really got it right, with a notable exception. Except for natural boundaries, the line boundaries we have between our states, our nations, even things that mark our cities, are fictitious. They are a product of mass hysteria to which we all buy into. If aliens did show up here on this planet and say, how come you have this religion over here, you have this monetary system, and sometimes you guys will fight about it. We talk about these boundaries, and they go, show me the boundaries, and we show them a map. They go, no, show me the real boundaries. And you go, well, we really kind of made that up. For those of us of a certain age, there was a show called WKRP in Cincinnati, where we had Les Nessman, who was miffed by not having his own office, so he took some duct tape and put boundaries around his desk. And you get to talk to him, you had to knock on his fictitious door, go through his fictitious doorway to talk to him. And it dawned on me when I was in space that we are a species of Les Nessmans. So I'll leave you with this. I went to space, saw these wonderful things. I don't think I'm any taller, any funnier, any smarter, any wiser for having had those experiences. But I do feel subtly different. The things I saw, the thoughts that those provoked, I cannot unsee and cannot unthink them. They are with me forever. And that's why I will never go back to where I was before I went into space. And the things that I think that the lessons from all that tie those all together is that we are a very ephemeral species. We are here in just but a blink of an eye in Earth's history, which is itself a blink of the eye in the universe's history. We're in a very small space together. Earth is just tiny. When you're looking at the Earth down there and you're looking out in space and there's 13.5 billion miles of nothing in that direction, you really get a sense of how infinitesimally finite we are. And so until we get ourselves off this planet, this is the only place we have. And no matter where we go, we are all that we have. And so as we go out into the universe, it's best not to forget who we are and where we came from. Thank you.